Evening, everybody. Here we are. It is Sunday evening, the last day of the regular season for baseball, except for tomorrow's rainout makeups. Um, Baltimore's in. We're hosting Kansas City. Times just haven't been announced yet. Um, Before we get started, um, wanted to remind you that for those of you who like to contribute to the Baltimore Chop, submissions are due tomorrow, essentially, tomorrow into Tuesday, so we can get the next issue out in the next couple of weeks. We will host the Peeps at the Peeb broadcast on Wednesday. I don't know if I will be hosting it because I will be at the game, but since times haven't been announced yet, everything's kind of in flux. So welcome to the postseason, I guess, for us Orioles fans. Time for some vengeance for 2014 on the Kansas City Royals. So I don't have any other announcements currently. I will admit people as they join. Ben Ernst is joining us from South Dakota and going to be taking over tonight's, he's our presenter tonight. He's also co-host, so if he has any slides or videos, he'll be able to show them. So please mute yourselves, and I'll let Ben take it over. And if you have questions, save them for the end or put them in the chat. So greatly appreciated, and we'll see you guys, in about 20 minutes, half hour. Thanks.
And thanks, Peter, for the nice introduction. So obviously, I am not in the Baltimore area, though. If you guys do know, I was fortunate enough to get a historical marker here in Aberdeen, South Dakota. So obviously, way back in the day before I was born, from 1946 to 1971, there was a minor league affiliate here in Aberdeen, South Dakota. So I always knew that back in the day. So I always thought it was cool as a kid. And then when I joined SABR about 2 years ago, because of South Dakota, with us being so small, I reached out to Peter and I just wanted the connection, even though it's been 50 plus years with Aberdeen, South Dakota, and the Baltimore area. So just this presentation is going to be a brief overview of the entire history of the Northern League, which was the minor league that the Aberdeen Pheasants played in back in the day. So now I'll share my screen. Peter, do you know where it's the share button for the PowerPoint?
You should be able to share.
Okay. Yeah, because I see on the bottom it has like start video.
Uh, Share is usually right next to react and chat.
Okay. Um, hmm.
It's even in the green color.
Oh yeah, duh. My mistake. Yeah, share screen. Okay. And then do people now see it says history of the Northern League?
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay. So brief history of the Northern League. So the one that I'm going to be talking about today is going to be the one from 1933 to 1971. Some people from the Midwest, they may be familiar with the one that Miles Wolff started, I believe in 1992, 1993 era. I'm going to speak about the original one back in that time frame. So the league consisted from 1933 to 1971. Franchises were located throughout the upper Midwest, through the states of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Canadian province of Manitoba, where there was a team called the Winnipeg Goldeyes. Okay. So during the existence, throughout the years, this is the list of teams that were around during that time frame. The first one, obviously, that's prevalent towards the Baltimore chapter is the Aberdeen Pheasants, which was started in 1946. They originally were a minor league affiliate of the St. Louis Browns. So initially in 1946, some of the well-known players that played for the Pheasants back then were Bob Turley, as well as Don Larson. If anyone's read the book, The Perfect Yankee by Don Larson, he talks about his first night being in Aberdeen, South Dakota, pretty eventful. Aberdeen is known as the hub city because back then trains throughout the entire U.S. was a very prevalent thing to get around. So when Don Larson came to Aberdeen, South Dakota, he was an 18-year-old kid from San Diego, California. Didn't know anyone, had that big league dream of trying to make it to the show. He ends up getting dropped off. So then he's told to, go to the next hotel nearby. So he goes from the train depot here in Aberdeen and he walks down on South Main Street. And then he goes into at the time, the Sherman Hotel. He goes into the Sherman Hotel, says, "My name's Paul Larson. I'm here to report to the Pheasants camp." He's informed his first night in Aberdeen that the hotel is completely full. So what does he do as a broke 18-year-old kid? He actually has to sleep in the hotel lobby that night. The next day, he ends up walking to the ballpark, so he continues on South Main Street. And then once again, not having any money, he says, "Hey, I'm part of the team." And then obviously the usher at the time thinks, "Hey, kid, who the heck are you?" So he has to pay his way into the doubleheader on his way to his long big league career. Obviously, in 1956, when he pitches that infamous perfect game against the Brooklyn Dodgers at the time. Other ballparks or other teams that were there, Bismarck, North Dakota had a team, as well as Duluth, Minnesota, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Fargo, Grand Forks, Huron, Mankato, Sioux Falls, St. Cloud, Watertown, Winnipeg, etc. The reason that I have this map of the Northwoods League, so obviously if people are located throughout the entire country, a lot of ballparks that were around during the original Northern League, some of these ballparks are still in use today. So it's kind of a good breakdown of how you can kind of see how spread out the leagues were throughout that time frame of the original Northern League as well. So now I'm going to kind of show you some of the ballparks that were around when the original Northern League was from 1933 to 1971. So the first ballpark that's still in use today is Bismarck Municipal Stadium in Bismarck, North Dakota. Satchel Paige did some barnstorming back in the day, so I believe they said in 1933, Satchel Paige actually pitched at this ballpark for, I believe it was like the Bismarck Churchills or something like that. I don't remember the exact team name. That's a pretty cool factoid as well. So the photo on the left, I've actually been to this ballpark myself. This was taken in 2000. So this is down either the first or third baseline, but it's pretty cool that the city of Bismarck kind of does a reference to the Northern League back in the day. So this is pretty cool. It's obviously it's the baseball cards back from the 60s and 70s. So it's pretty cool to see some of the players that played in the small towns in the upper Midwest before they made it to the show. So that's obviously Bismarck. Next ballpark that's still around is Wade Stadium. This is probably one of my favorite ballparks that I've been to, even compared to major league ballparks. I've only gone here one time. Wade Stadium was actually part of the FDR New Deal back in the 1940s. It was part of the Works Progress Administration project. So obviously that was after the Great Depression. So obviously just to kind of spruce the economy, FDR made an initiative, an effort to try to spruce that. So this ballpark was funded by there. Like I said, if you're a nostalgic person that likes the old school ballpark and vibes where it's just simple and it's just the love of baseball, Wade Stadium, super cool. The bathrooms, when I went there about 3 or 4 years ago, it's still original back to its day from 1941. It's a pretty cool ballpark to check out. And then how it's situated, it's situated by Lake Superior. So it's pretty cool. You kind of hear the boats come in off the Great Lakes as well. So it has a cool vibe to it. I've been to San Francisco's ballpark as well. But it's just kind of like one of those unique experiences that you can experience when you go to the game as well. And same thing, it's part of the Northwoods League as well. So the Duluth Huskies play at that ballpark still. And then, so this is another cool ballpark as well. This was another one that was part of the Works Progress Administrative Project. This is in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. A lot of people may not know this, but Hank Aaron, his first major league team professional team that he played for was the Eau Claire Bears. back in 1942. So this is how the ballpark looks from the outside. And then they have a nice old bus of Hank Aaron, and in the message just kind of says how this is where his origins started before he became the on his chase to become the home run king, breaking Babe Ruth's record. And then this is just some additional shots as well. So it's a pretty cool aerial view that they have as well. So you can kind of see where my cursor is. Since then, they've obviously added a football field down the left field line. But that's pretty cool as well. And then obviously that's how it looks behind home plate. And then another ballpark that's still around. This is in Huron, South Dakota. So they were minor league affiliates of the Huron Phillies as well as the Huron Cubs. They were only around for a couple seasons in the Northern League, I believe in 1967 or 68. I went to a game last summer. So the picture on the right, this is a game of the Huron Post 7 Legion baseball team. So just because of Huron being so small, I think the population's maybe 8 or 9,000. They're obviously not able to support a minor league baseball team like they did back in the late 1960s. So another ballpark that's still around, that was part of the Northern League. This is ISG Field. I don't remember what the original name is, but they obviously have the corporate sponsorship now. This was part of the Mankato Mets in, I believe, 1967 or 68. But since then, you can see they've added field turf, have a nice scoreboard down the right field line as well. So it's definitely changed a lot. And this is located in Mankato, Minnesota, which is southwestern Minnesota as well. So that's one of the ballparks there that's still around. And then this is one that I went to last summer. So this is in Minot, North Dakota. This is Corbett Field. So same thing, the Minot Mallards, one of the old Northern League teams played at that ballpark as well. A lot of it hasn't changed since then, just because of the climates of the upper Midwest, having snow until end of April, beginning of May, it just kind of makes sense to have AstroTurf and field turf just because you don't have to worry about unplayable playing conditions as well. And then another stadium that's still around, Sioux Falls Stadium. So this was home of the Sioux Falls Canaries and Packers. Ken Griffey Sr. Played for them when they were a minor league affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds back in the day as well. And obviously the ballpark is still in use today. They're part of the American Association. And then another ballpark that's still around. So this is another ballpark that was part of the Works Progress Administration project. This was a multi-purpose stadium as well, so you can kind of tell from the outside it has the construction of a football stadium. So the local high school uses that for football, but then they're also used it for baseball back in the day. The minor league affiliate was the Watertown Expos from back in the day. So same thing. It's pretty cool that you can still find the old school connections between the Northern League here and the Upper Midwest, even though it was over 50 years since the last existence. So now I'm going to dive into some of the historical events that took place during the existence of the Northern League. So one of the big moments that took place back then, obviously, a lot of the times, if you're from a small town, a lot of the times you always got the big news either in the newspaper or listen to games on the radio. A lot of it wasn't like instant gratification like we have today, where you can get a score right away. And that's what I kind of love about that era. It was just kind of the simplicity of the game where it's not like, I want now. Like you get scores all the time. So one of the big first events that took place, the Cardinals were a minor league affiliate of the time of the Winnipeg Goldeyes in Winnipeg, Canada. So on an off day on August 20th, 1962, the Cardinals came to Winnipeg, Canada to play an exhibition game. Stan Musial at the time, who was 41 years old towards the end of his career, he ended up playing at that game. And then he actually had a RBI single at 3 at-bats. But unfortunately, the parent club, with their plethora of talent, they were able to defeat their minor league counterpart 9-1 in front of 12,300 fans. Next one, obviously, that holds a very special heart to me. because obviously I mentioned starting this video conference, how I was very grateful for Peter for helping me get the SABR historical marker here in South Dakota, is the Aberdeen Pheasants. And obviously, if a lot of Baltimore fans and the Orioles are obviously prevalent and really big for the area, happened on June 8th, 1964, when the Aberdeen Pheasants parent club Baltimore Orioles came here to play against its minor league club. That ballpark was, or the team had a plethora of talented ball players that ended up making to the majors. I believe 8 players ended up making there. Notable players included Eddie Watt, Jim Palmer, as well as a great number of other players. Obviously, this is a picture of the team from 1964, as you can see right in the middle. That's the legendary Cal Ripken, the first family of baseball, and right to the next of them, Jim Palmer as well. But obviously, at the same time, too, just because of the Orioles being talented, the Pheasants ended up getting defeated 6-3 in front of a sellout crowd. And then some other significant events that took place during the history of the Northern League. Bob Turley, another great player, started his major league career here in Aberdeen, South Dakota, back in 1949. So at the time, it was the minor league affiliate of the St. Louis Browns. To the right, this is pretty cool. So I got this photo at the local library here in Aberdeen. This is a picture from the local newspaper. You can see right here is Bob Turley back in 1949. So once again, it's pretty cool. 8 years later, he ends up winning the Cy Young Award for the New York Yankees. And you don't even have to be a big baseball fan to know that the Yankees are the definition of greatness when it comes to baseball. Another big event that took place in 1952, Hank Aaron played against the Pheasants when he was playing for Eau Claire with a 7-2 win. Another big event that took place, 1953, Roger Maris obviously correlates to the Babe Ruth Museum. In 1961, Roger Maris obviously broke Babe Ruth's record. So just with all the stress and scrutiny that he had to deal with, he played for the Fargo Moorhead Twins. In 1953, he ended up winning the Rookie of the Year award as well. It's another great player that was part of the Northern League before they made it to the Bigs. And then a player that didn't make it to the Bigs, but just any baseball fan / aficionados, Steve Dalkowski. If you've ever read about him, he is one of the players that was always so close to get there, but he had some personal demons that he just wasn't able to get past it. But on May 17th, 1959, he pitched a no-hitter, striking out 21 and walking 8. And at the same time, Earl Weaver, another great manager, part of the Orioles' history, he was a manager of the Aberdeen Pheasants in 1959. So before he became the manager of the Aberdeen, or not the Aberdeen Pheasants, of the Baltimore Orioles in the late 60s, early 70s, when they were the most successful team during that era, Earl Weaver played here as well, too. So now I'm going to dive into more specific great players that played here before they made to the Bigs. So this is a pretty cool photo. So this is a photo of Hank Aaron in 1952. I believe that is an 18 or 19-year-old from back in the day. On the left is a photo that I took when I went to a game there, I believe in like 2017 or 2018. But that's just kind of a photo of the bust of how it looks like outside the ballpark. So it's great that they're still honoring him because it's a great inspiration to a lot of players that have that dream, like a lot of American kids that want to make it to the Bigs. That this is where you start. You start in some small town, and who knows, you're going to be then eventually getting to live a dream and playing in front of 40 to 50,000 people. The photo on the right is of Bo Belinsky. Some people may know him, some people may not know him. He was known for being a Playboy pitcher. I didn't really know him until I started researching the Pheasants when I moved back to Aberdeen. He has a lifetime record of 28-51, but his claim to fame happened on May 5th, 1962, when he ended up pitching the first no-hitter in Dodger Stadium history before the Dodgers, because at the time, the Angels were the expansion team, and they obviously had to rent the ballpark from their crosstown rivals, the Dodgers. So kind of a crazy story. He was part of the Orioles farm system. Orioles were kind of sick of him because he was known as a partier / womanizer. So the Angels were an expansion team. They saw the guy, they saw a scouting report and think we got to take a chance on this guy. Obviously, we're an expansion team. We need to expand, see what we have to offer. So he ends up pitching his no-hitter on May 5th, 1962, against his former major league club, the Baltimore Orioles. Crazy connection to the Aberdeen Pheasants. He gets the final out off the bat of Dave Nicholson. So Dave Nicholson played for the Pheasants, I believe, in 1958 or 59. And then the pitcher that Bo Belinsky ended up beating was Steve Barber, who also was a teammate of his when he played here in Aberdeen as well. So pretty crazy stats just because you think of, a small town like Aberdeen has like 25,000 people and Southern California has over 3 million people plus. So it's pretty crazy that the baseball gods have that crazy statistic happen. Some other great players that played for the Pheasants. So right here is a picture of Lou Brock. So at the time he was part of the Chicago Cubs affiliate. So even though this photo is black and white, you can kind of see how the jersey design was that you color it, you can tell it has the blue and the red colors that the Cubs are known for as well. So that's a cool photo of Lou Brock. Another great player that played in the Northwoods League or the Northern League was Steve Carlton. So Steve Carlton played in 1964 for the Winnipeg Goldeyes. So that's a cool photo as well. And another great player that played in the Northern League, Orlando Cepeda in 1956. So at the time, he was part of the New York Giants franchise. So same thing because of it being so old. The photos back then were in black and white. So this is pretty cool. So you can kind of see that, if you color the photo, it would obviously be the black and the orange, like the Giants affiliate. And then the photo on the right, crazy stat that I don't know a lot of people know this or not. Future Hall of Fame manager Terry Francona was born here in Aberdeen, South Dakota. But Tito Francona, his father, played here in 1953, and he ended up meeting Roberta Jackson. And Roberta Jackson ended up obviously marrying Tito, and then Terry Francona was born here. So now that Terry Francona is retired and he has more free time, I'm hoping he goes back to Aberdeen, South Dakota, because it'd be pretty cool for him to see where his dad grew up and where his parents met as well. So same thing, I got this photo from the local newspaper here, and you can tell, the Browns. So that was obviously before the Browns moved to Baltimore and became the Baltimore Orioles as well. So Tito's located on the right here. And then I mentioned a little bit too how Ken Griffey Sr. played in Sioux Falls as well. This was the only card that I could find because at the time the Sioux Falls Packers were a minor league affiliate of the Reds. So this is Ken Griffey Sr. on the left. Photo on the right is Don Larson. So I mentioned when I started this presentation how Don Larson's first night in Aberdeen was pretty eventful. None of the players or the front office staff knew he was coming into town. So it's pretty crazy when he's a 18, 19-year-old kid, he was going to make baseball history, 6, 7 years down the line to become the first player ever to pitch a perfect game. So this is a photo of him. Obviously looks like in a clubhouse, him and a teammate when he was playing for the Aberdeen Pheasants back in the day. And then, so this is a cool story. So a couple months ago, I was up in Fargo for work, and I'm a foodie, so I was kind of researching places that I wanted to eat. So I ended up going to this pizza place called Sammy's Pizza. So I end up going into this place, and then I'm wearing this Hawaii Islanders shirt, which is an old minor league team back in the day, and it has 1961 on it. And I go in, and this guy says, "Oh, 1961, Roger Maris," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a big baseball guy." Long story short, this guy says, "Oh, Roger Maris's dad used to hang out here all the time." So it was pretty crazy just because, anything significant, 1961, and you're a baseball fan, that's when, Roger Maris hits number 61 and he sets the home run record during that season as well. So that was a pretty cool thing. So this is a picture in the middle of the booth that Roger Maris's dad was a regular at. And then also he said that Mickey Mantle came there to visit his dad, and Roger ate there as well. And then the picture on the right is Roger Maris when he played in the Northern League as well, for the Fargo Moorhead Indians back in the day. And then continuing, so some other players too that played in the Northern League back in the day. So last 30-game winner, probably ever going to be 30-game winner, Denny McLean, pitched for the Duluth Superior Dukes back in 1963. So obviously that's the only card that I could find from back in the day. And then obviously on the right, Orioles legend Jim Palmer on the right played for the infamous 1964 Aberdeen Pheasants. So this is pretty cool because you can see him in his Pheasants gear from back in the day. Little side note as well, you can kind of see he was wearing 23, so he wasn't wearing his infamous number 22 when he made it to the show for the Orioles. So that's a pretty cool photo before he made his big league debut. And then another player that a lot of people don't realize, Lou Piniella, he played for the Pheasants in 1964 as well. This is like the only photo that I've been able to find on the internet. I can't tell what ballpark it's at, but you can obviously see the Baltimore that's over the chest as well. So that's in 1964 when he made his major league debut. I think he only played about 4 or 5 games when he made it to the show that year. But another player that I personally don't realize why he's not in the Hall of Fame, because he won either 2 or 3 championships for the Yankees, and just how he was a really great manager because he managed the Reds to the World Series in 1990 as well. And then on the right, another great player, Willie Stargell, played for the Grand Forks Chiefs in 1960 as well. And then another great player too that played, Hall of Famer Joe Torre, once again played in Eau Claire Braves. I can't remember the book, but I think it's the Perfect Yankee. I have the book, but Joe talks about his career, and one of the things he mentions, he remembers playing in Aberdeen and Eau Claire and a lot of the other small towns before he made it to the majors from back in the day. So that's a card from the 1960s that he had too. And then the picture on the right is of Bob Uecker. So obviously Bob Uecker, Mr. Baseball, was known more obviously for his antics of kind of being a smart ass or smart aleck. I'll correct myself on there. So Bob Uecker played for the Eau Claire Braves from back in the day as well. So another great baseball player that played in the Northern League. And then so other great players too, that are obviously prevalent to the Baltimore chapter and Orioles fans. Some great managers before they made it to the majors. Cal Ripken Sr., the first family of baseball right there in his Aberdeen Pheasants uniform, managed here in 1963, 1964, and 1966. And then on the right, Earl Weaver in 1959 as well. So once again, it's pretty crazy all the great players that played in these small towns throughout the upper Midwest before they made it to the major leagues as well. So the one thing that I want to transition to, so obviously I haven't been to the Baltimore area, but like I said in this conversation, thanks a lot to Peter, as well as David Stinson for helping me get my vision become a reality to get the first SABR historical marker here in South Dakota. So for anyone that hasn't seen this yet in the Baltimore shop, on June 8th, 2024, the first SABR historical marker was installed here on the campus of Northern State University, which was where the ballpark was located from 1946 to 1971 for the Pheasants' existence. So when I did the revealing of the marker, this gentleman on the left, Bill Cantaloupe, never met the guy, and then he shows up and he's like, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." So the picture of him and me, the baseball that he had in the middle is a ball that he got from the game on June 8th, 1964. So it's a pretty cool thing. So obviously, like I said, it's the only time that a major league club has played here in South Dakota. So it's pretty cool that, with that being 60 years to the day, him not losing that baseball, and just how much has changed throughout those years of existence. It's a pretty cool thing that he was there. So since that time frame, there's been some updates that have taken place. So a local author named Pat Gallagher, he came out with a book called Filbert and the Aberdeen Pheasants. So on the book, you can obviously see Filbert was the mascot. So throughout the team's history, as I mentioned back then, we didn't have the instant gratification where you can know within 5 minutes if the Orioles or whoever your favorite team was won or lost. So in the paper back in the day, if you were out of town or if you didn't get a chance to listen to the game on the radio, you always had to see who won or lost the game. So Filbert always was a very friendly, diehard fan that gave ups and downs of the scores throughout its existence. So right here is a link as well. So the Dakota Prairie Museum came out with the books. So if anyone's interested, I highly recommend it. So some of the photos that I provided of like Jim Palmer and Cal Ripken, those additional photos are in there as well. They have some cool photos of the ballpark as well. So I'd recommend that book. And then on July 20th of this year, there was a book signing here at the Dakota Prairie Museum. So Pat Gallagher on the right is the gentleman who wrote the book. I'm on the left, and then in the middle is Dennis Maloney. So Dennis Maloney was the last president of the Aberdeen Pheasants in 1971. He's definitely still has his wits and everything. I believe he's like 93 or 94 years old. But he's definitely up there, but he's completely passionate about baseball as well. So when I was there, I definitely wanted to get a photo. I don't have it mounted anywhere at my house or anything like that, but it's still a cool thing to have with the connection and everything too. So then this is also from the book signing as well. So this is pretty cool. So this is an old jersey that the museum has here in Aberdeen of the original jersey from the Pheasants' existence. On the right, it's pretty cool. So it kind of shows how the ballpark looked like from center field. And then it shows different notable players that ended up making it to the major leagues as well. Another crazy coincidence at that book signing event, you can see right here is a scorecard from 1964. It may be kind of hard to see, but this is the actual scorecard from that exhibition game between the Baltimore Orioles and the Aberdeen Pheasants from that day. So I don't remember the lady's name, but long story short, she's originally from Aberdeen, but now she lives in the Baltimore, D.C. area. And she says that she's a Baltimore Orioles season ticket holder. And I was telling her how I'm a SABR member and I have this historical marker. And I said, have you ever been to the Babe Ruth Museum? She's like, yeah, I've been there all the time. So it's pretty crazy, you know, the whole small town connection and everything, how she still has this jersey in mint condition and mint shape as well. So you can see as well right here where my cursor is Jim Palmer as well, because she said a couple months ago she was at a game and she knew someone who worked for the Orioles. And she said, you know, could Jim sign this? And then Jim Palmer rambled on about the great 1964 team and all the great memories that he had as well too. So the next thing I'm gonna transition to, I think Marty's on here as well. So Marty got a hold of me a couple weeks ago, and he said, you know, hey, my name's Marty. My grandpa Larry DeSaltis was the Pheasant sports writer from back in the day, and he's like, it's a real great accomplishment what you were able to do as well. So the next slide right here to the right is Larry DeSaltis. He's the sports writer who covered the Pheasants during the Pheasants' existence from 1946 to 1971. Larry's son John, which would be Marty's dad, was a like a runner. He did all the odd jobs for the Pheasants from back in the day. So I thought it was pretty cool that Marty was able to reach out to me and express his gratitude for the whole historical marker. And then some of these photos are some photos that Marty shared to me. So I just wanted to share it with you guys. So it's pretty cool. So in the middle, you can see this is a special plaque that the Baltimore Orioles gave to him in August 20th, 1970, honoring his connection between the Aberdeen Pheasants and the Baltimore Orioles. So it's pretty cool that he has that as well. And then on the right, obviously, this is a picture that's on the back of the plaque. So you can see it's a picture from Jim McLaughlin, who was the farm director for the Orioles at the time. So it's pretty cool. So obviously this was at the ballpark from the day as well. So this is probably one of the coolest photos that I've seen. So right here is a photo that Marty shared with me. So this is a photo from 1964. So right here, that's Larry DeSaltis, and then right to the left is Cal Ripken Sr. So this is pretty cool. So this is like a clinic that they did from back in the day with all the local kids here in Aberdeen as well. So it's a pretty cool, surreal moment that, you know, my effort to try to do recognition to all the great players and great franchises. It's a pretty cool thing. And continuing, so right here, some additional photos as well. So photo on the left is original hat from the St. Louis Browns. So as I mentioned, originally the Pheasants were a minor league affiliate of the St. Louis Browns. So this is a special hat that Larry, or it was either Larry or John, I don't remember exactly, but they donated the hat to Cooperstown in the 1960s. So obviously back then we didn't have emails and internet. So basically it's the Baseball Hall of Fame thanking them to donating this historical artifacts to the Hall of Fame. So I haven't been to the Hall of Fame yet, but it's pretty cool that there's that connection as well. So right here is a photo, a personal picture of Filbert the Pheasant by Gordie Howe. So I mentioned the book that Pal Gallagher came out with honoring Filbert the Pheasant. So Gordon Howe, the person that came up with Filbert the Pheasant, this is a personal drawing that he gave to Larry as well. So that's pretty cool. And then when I was talking to Marty as well, I asked him, I'm like, well, where's the house that your grandpa lived at? He's like, it was a 1110 South Arch Street. And he said that Earl Weaver came over all the time to, you know, talk baseball with him after the game and stuff. So, you know, me being Mr. Baseball aficionado, I ended up going. So this photo I took on the right is, I believe, maybe a month or so ago. So this is the house that Earl Weaver, before he made it to Baltimore, is the house that he stopped and he talked to Larry all the time about as well. So that's pretty cool as well. And then one of the things too that the Dakota Prairie Museum did for the whole existence of the marker / the history of the pheasants. This is at the local regional airport in Aberdeen, so they have a kiosk that's going on right now. So this is pretty cool. So you can see right here Jim Palmer on the Wheaties box that he signed from back in the day that he gave to us here in Aberdeen. And then the photo on the right, I just wanted to include because I mentioned how Tito Francona played for the Pheasants here in 1953, and then Terry Francona was born here. So this is a photo of the 1953 team, and then right here is the photo of Tito as well. And then right here is a championship trophy from 1951 from the Aberdeen Pheasants winning in 1959. So this is pretty cool. So as I mentioned, Earl Weaver managed that team as well. So this is the trophy that he ended up winning. So it's pretty surreal that the Dakota Prairie Museum here still has that in its possession. And then photo on the right as well is some tickets or season passes that the museum has as well. So that's all I have for the presentation. Hope everyone enjoyed my presentation, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, guys. You have any questions for Ben? He's going to stop sharing his screen here, hopefully momentarily. Questions, comments? That was, hey, Tom Steach, Mr. Cleveland, go ahead.
How far is Aberdeen from Mitchell, South Dakota?
Mitchell's maybe about 2 hours or so. It's you just go about direct south from here.
Okay, because and my brother, myself, and my college roommate back in August '69, we drove around the country, and on the way back from Yellowstone, or well, Interstate 80, I think it was, coming east, and my brother's car, the battery died. So Mitchell, South Dakota was the closest place. And I remember there's a building called the Corn Palace or something. It was an old wooden building.
Yeah, it's still around. It's kind of, you know, when you Google South Dakota and tourism attraction, Mount Rushmore is usually number one, and then number two is the Corn Palace. So that's where the high school basketball team has. So they have a lot of basketball games there. So yeah, that's the Corn Palace in Mitchell.
Interesting. Now, where do you have any history of how did they get the name Pheasants? Obviously,
So it's kind of prevalent. So I'm not a big outdoor like hunting sort of person. So in about a less than a month or so, it's pheasant opener. So pheasants, it's like a bird that's local to the upper Midwest kind of Great Plains area. So that's why I'm assuming how the pheasants name kind of came around. So it's kind of symbolic. So it's cool that the exhibit's going to be on because a lot of pheasant hunters throughout the country come here to Aberdeen. So it pairs perfectly because that's obviously when the MLB postseason is going to be going on. So some diehard person could be from, you know, the New York area and they could be a Yankees fan, and then they go by that exhibit and they had no idea that, you know, Don Larson, you know, played in Aberdeen back in 1947 and 48 before he made it to the New York and pitched that perfect game for the Yankees.
now the old ballpark, they tore it down. What do they do with the material?
So that's the thing that I don't really know. Because I'm only 34, so I don't really, you know, because like I said, I didn't dive a lot into it. So when I learned about the Pheasants, there was the Pheasants. It was an independent team from 1995 to 1997, and that's how I learned about the Pheasants. And they actually had an exhibit back in like 1998 to 2000, and that was the first time I learned about Don Larson's perfect game because I still remember it to this day. I remember the infamous final out call by Vin Scully. So Vin Scully, you know, does, you know, the final out by, you know, Don Larson, you know, perfect game. And that's when, like, as an 8-year-old, I like freak out. I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, everyone knows the Yankees. And that was the first time I fell in love with baseball. And that was like, you know, that was the first time I'm like, wow, like all these great players that played in this, you know, small town. And yeah, like I said, it's still surreal today that all these great players played here. So like I said, I'm just very grateful and happy now that future generations will know about the great team and the great Northern League as well too.
So there's a Cleveland connection to all this because Don Larson's perfect game should not have been a perfect game. Dale Mitchell was a last batter, had a 10-year, over 300 batting average career with the Indians, and Hank Greenberg, the general manager of the Indians, traded him to the Dodgers at the deadline in '55. They needed, or '56, they needed a pinch hitter, and he only struck out like 100 times in 10,000 at bats in the major leagues, so he got a good batting eye. That pitch, if you look on the screen, everything, it wasn't a strike. And to Dale Mitchell's dying day, and I have this from his sons, who came to Cleveland, was it 2 years ago in August when they had a ceremony of the 1948 Indians, said that the ball was high and outside, but that's history.
Anybody else question wise, comments? Marty, thank you for joining us, by the way. Great to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be with you guys. I appreciate the invite. And yeah, Ben, thanks for putting all that together. I know there's a lot of work that even goes into, you know, 40-minute presentation. It's a lot more than 40 minutes piecing all that together. But, you know, from my correspondence with Ben back and forth. He is the authority on the Aberdeen pheasants, which is amazing because they dissolved in 1971, and he was probably born 1990-ish, I think. So he wasn't even around.
Yeah, you're welcome, Marty. And like I said, it's very cool that you were able to come across the whole SABR historical marker and stuff, and definitely share all those personal photos that you had as well too. So it's cool that more people can know about what your grandpa did and everything and stuff too. And like we kind of talked off the video too, hopefully one day you make it to Aberdeen so I can show you some of the cool places where Don Larson and Tito Francona stayed at, and where the Ripkins lived at as well too. So, like I said, if you ever want to stop by, I can give you a grand tour.
I got as close last week as I have in years. I had a connecting flight in Minneapolis, so I was about a 6-hour drive away, is what I remember. It's been a while, but yeah, that was my parents were born and raised there, but yeah, that's always home. Spent a lot of great summer days and playing on that old ball field after they tore the grandstands down. 7 or 8 years later. Spent a lot of time on what was left of that ball field there as a kid.
All right. Well, and also from the Baltimore standpoint, with the Orioles doing so well and being relevant again, those of us here who live in Maryland um, are happy to get more and more Orioles history out there, and learn the connections and the St. Louis Browns and the great players that came through South Dakota, and then ended up doing great either with the Orioles or somewhere else, at the major league level. So, the SABR members, as we know, we like a little bit of everything and see how it all connects later. So, now as we're headed to the postseason, as long as Philadelphia doesn't win it, I can pretty much root for anybody else. That's my personal stance this year. I'd like to see, Tom is still on here. If the Orioles get knocked out, I think I'm going to pull for Cleveland. So, Tom Bell, do you have a question?
Yeah, are all those ballparks still in use?
Yeah, so that's how when I did my presentation, Tom, I kind of wanted to show that, obviously if you guys are located on the East Coast and you've never been to like the upper Midwest and you like to do ballpark tours like I do, for the summer, a lot of these ballparks are still around. So like I mentioned, like Duluth's still around, Mankato's still around. So the one thing that I recommend to a lot of people, I know obviously out on the East Coast, the Cape Cod League, that's the premier college wood bat league. I'd say probably number 2 is the Northwoods League. So for instance, Pete Alonso, he played for the Madison Mallards a couple of years ago. Max Scherzer played in the league. Um, I'm trying to think of other players. But yeah, if you go to their website, they have over, I think, 340, 50 players that make it to the majors. So it's pretty crazy because, back then, Jim Palmer, Willie Stargell, Orlando Cepeda, all those great players played there, even though that was 50, 70 years ago. So you can still watch players that 4 or 5 years ago, they're going to be playing in the majors. So yeah, I'd say at least 7 or 8 ballparks are still around. So if this video is shown again on YouTube, you can probably watch it and then just see all the ballparks that are still around.
We were managed there. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, actually, takes SABR, once this is recorded, takes the folks at HQ a couple days, and then it gets loaded onto the SABR YouTube page. So probably Jacob will get it up there, I'm guessing, by Wednesday or Thursday. So, so it'll be out there forever. So there's nothing else. Hopefully we'll see you guys again. Obviously we have the talk on Wednesday night, but who knows what the times are going to be for wild card games at this point. I think a lot of it has to do with the Mets and the National League one that still has to be settled tomorrow, thanks to the hurricane. So appreciate all your attention. Obviously, Ben, this was great. I love learning. The Northern League, the Midwest, having the SABR convention was in Minneapolis earlier August, I guess, already. So, you know, part of the convention was exposure to a lot of the baseball in that region. So, this gives me even more depth. So greatly appreciated. If nothing else, you guys know how to reach me if you need anything. I think all today's games are done, except for the one that was delayed. So, you know, tomorrow we will have a couple innings of Mets. Who is it? Mets and Braves, and then we're on to the postseason on the 1st. So, appreciate your attention. Appreciate you joining us on a Sunday night here in Baltimore. Football is about to start, so my neighborhood's going to get rowdy soon, since I live a mile from the M&T Raven Stadium. So, thank you guys. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time around. So,
All right, bring on the Royals.
take care, everybody. Thanks,
Take care.
Ben.
No, thanks.